have one message.
Hi. It's been years since we last spoke. I know you probably won't ever listen to this message, given that you changed your number so long ago, but whatever. You know, I think I hate you, even though I've loved you all this time. You really left in the end. At first I thought we'd see each other again, that one day you'd come back and we'd pick up our life where we left off, the one we knew and had always lived. I thought it was just a moment of madness, a broken dream before it even began. One of many we had created that never took off. Then a few months later I saw you on television. I didn't even recognize you. Your face seemed so foreign, identical to those of everyone who matters in the world. I had never felt like such a failure as I did then. I had always taken it for granted that such things could never happen to us. And yet, it happened. In the following months, I saw you in newspapers, in advertisements, your face full of joy, without a trace of the days spent in this forsaken place. You never came back. And after you, the others from our old group also left, mostly to nearby cities. Commitments separate us. Life devours the time to meet. I often found myself alone, under the sky, near the castle where we used to smoke and drink until morning. I felt like I wasn't achieving anything. I had plenty of time to think, to mull over everything we said the last time we spoke. Your words shattered everything I thought I knew about myself. Since that day, I think I stopped looking at myself in the mirror. I had never been so ashamed. I went out often, looking for someone to date. I changed many jobs, many hobbies. Each time I saw your face. Nothing I did really interested me. I never managed to excel at anything. Perhaps, seeing me, you would have felt pity. I saw your girlfriend on television. Beautiful and full of talent. I wondered how many intelligent and interesting people you must have met. Days passed, thinking about your cold blue eyes. I came to hate you almost as much as I came to hate myself. In April, I was asked to look after old Fetcher, that senile old man who only talked about his sunken boat. Afternoons with him were a torment, drowned in the strangest card games and nostalgic, bitter memories of the past. Night was for thoughts and reflections. It never let me sleep. I tried to quit smoking, but I couldn't. I wasn't strong enough, not even to resist myself. Over time, the old man must have realized something was brewing in my mind. He immediately started giving me grand sermons on how to live life, finding your path, and chasing your dreams. I thought he was just like the others, a soul devoid of perception, full of preconceived notions and heard before stories. I think I even told him so. How does one reach 80 and still repeat the same old tired phrases? If it had been up to me, I wouldn't have found myself in that situation. Sometimes we're simply losers, even if it hurts to accept. Old Fetcher, after my harsh words towards him, decided to torment me with the most bizarre tasks he could think of. That old man mocked me and took revenge like a 5-year-old child. Still, he slowly managed to make me feel guilty and stirred a sense of anger and revenge. Small successes motivated me to chase bigger dreams. I decided to start swimming, and over time, I became good at it. I began frequenting the bookstore, savouring stories of other lives. I found new friends, people who supported me and whom I cared deeply for. At night, I dreamed of your face, and words I didn't want to remember, your eyes. I ardently wished to rot that face, to show you that I still had something to say. Old Fetcher seemed happy, as if all this had served to change something. So I moved on. I found a job that made me feel at home, and finally I managed to say goodbye to cigarettes. I often found myself walking in the fields near the city, watching the train in the distance cross the green ocean. The same train we wondered about. Who were its passengers? Where were they headed? What was its story? I saw in the reflections in my new friend's eyes the enthusiasm we once had for discovering certain places. But the emotions had faded. Nothing was like it used to be. I thought all this was a poor consolation, a nice way to start over and forget. My life was starting to take on a bizarre shape, unrecognisable to me, drowned in self-anger and insecurity. Around September, old Fetcher began to feel weak and tired. He had become grumpy, a real nuisance to bear. Moreover, he was too interested in my private affairs, always trying to meddle and give his opinion, often misunderstanding or quoting events completely unrelated to my own life experiences. He stopped tormenting me shortly before telling me he felt it was time to visit his old boat. The thought made me laugh. That wreck was who knows where at the bottom of the sea. He still made me promise I would accompany him to the top of Maricel to see his old vessel from the mountain's peak. I thought he had gone mad, that it was the last delirium of a soul about to cross the threshold. Instead, that dry sponge managed to endure over time and not forget a single word. In the end, I found myself forced to keep that silly promise. One morning, we decided to start up the mountain. The journey would be short, but the old man boasted a pace faster than a snail, but definitely slower than a turtle. We brought tents to camp overnight. Fetcher remained strangely silent for almost the entire climb. He limited himself to brief comments and showing me some silly things from his life at sea. For the first time, I found him genuinely interesting. That man must have lived a full life, even if so distant from mine. By the fire, I had the chance to see the reflection of his memories in those tired eyelids. Shiny irises, dulled by the years. An expression of calm serenity. The next morning was a disaster. The old man managed to stop every 10 minutes for a much-needed break to catch his breath. I think I asked him in every way to turn back, to abandon this stupid quest to see from a mountain a ship turned to dust, but he wouldn't hear of it. I wondered what you were doing at that moment. Maybe you were dealing with one of your TV shows. Maybe you were at a ceremony or a private party. Maybe you were on the other side of the world, savouring luxury in a different culture. I found myself lost in these thoughts, only to wake up in the mud of that slope. I'm sure Fetcher was dying to tell me another of his triumphant stories, but during those days he limited himself to watching me with a lost gaze, as if he had resigned himself. We arrived at the mountain's summit in the evening. The old man sat on a boulder, staring at that vast expanse of water. I counted the minutes, waiting to ask to descend to end this eccentric expedition. Seeing his pleased look, I couldn't help but ask if he was satisfied now that in front of him was only a vast nothingness, with no trace of his boat. Fetcher didn't seem to feel mocked by my jab. He simply invited me to sit next to him. We remained silent for what seemed like an eternity. Then he felt the need to speak to me one last time about his life. You know, the last time I saw her, I followed her slow movements until I saw her disappear, my muse right there at that point. It was a difficult time. Every day I thought I'd go get her back. I wandered on the dock alone, staring at my reflection in the emerald water of the sea. It made me sad, a sailor who had lost everything. So I decided to save some money by doing some humble work. In the end, I managed to pay a diver to retrieve my muse, abandoned by my weakness. I always tortured myself with the idea that if only I hadn't wanted to cross that sea, maybe she would still be with me. The day came. I accompanied the man to my old boat and watched him dive beneath the surface of the sea. I saw the sun casting my tired old shadow over the waters. Hours passed. The wreck was found, but there was no trace of my beloved muse. Every time I had the chance to see my reflection, I thought of those tired eyes, worn down by the continuous mourning I had forced myself to live. I spent some years wandering to kill time. One day I was invited to a school to talk about old boats to a group of young enthusiasts. As I spoke, I was captivated by the gaze of one of them, by his amazed and wondrous face, his eager passion, his enthusiasm. I almost fell to the ground. There it was, my muse, hidden in those emotions. I went home that night, put on my old hat and uniform. I took the old photos of a past life and stood in front of the mirror. All this time, she had been there with me, intoxicated by my anger and disappointment, coloured by the rancour of melancholic memories, decorated and shaped by my passions. Since that day, I haven't forgotten her eyes, her sweet features. I saw her again in the old sea photos, in the stories of fellow travellers, in fishing days and the laughter of passers-by, in the eyes of those who listened to me. In the young people facing life, I haven't forgotten her. After that, he said no more. I waited a few minutes before descending. We reached the base of the mountain the next day and said goodbye with a hug. I remember his satisfied face, his clear eyes full of emotions. In the following days, I decided to stay alone, to return one last time to the vast fields of our city. I haven't seen old Fetcher again. I imagine he's still playing his quirky card games. I decided to leave and take the train crossing that green prairie, to discover once and for all where it was headed. And so now I find myself here, at this station, on this train, with my luggage. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm looking for, but I feel that there's something for me beyond this sea. Looking out the window of this empty cabin, I leave this message for myself to say goodbye and welcome while I observe your azure eyes in the faint reflection before me. Those azure eyes, the same colour as mine, blue as the sea.